Have you ever noticed how the biggest, most successful companies, the Goliaths of the world, somehow get taken down by tiny, scrappy startups? Well, today we're going to dive into that exact mystery, the Goliath problem.
I mean, seriously, think about it. You had companies like Kodak or BlackBerry. They were on top of the world. They had the money, the brand, the smartest people, the whole shebang. And yet, boom, they get completely blindsided by newcomers. So what gives? It's a puzzle that gets right to the core of a huge business paradox. To figure this out, you have to understand a simple but really profound difference. See, a giant corporation and a startup aren't just different in size. Nope. They are fundamentally different kinds of organisms, built for completely different reasons.
And here it is, the absolute key. Entrepreneur Steve Blank nailed it when he said this: big companies are built to execute. They have a business model that works, and their entire structure is designed to repeat that model efficiently over and over. They're like a finely tuned machine. A startup, on the other hand, it's built to search. It doesn't have a proven business model yet, so its entire existence is about experimenting and exploring to find one.
And this is where the paradox really kicks in. The very success that makes a company a Goliath also creates a massive anchor. It makes it almost mathematically impossible to change course when a storm hits. And look, this isn't just about incompetent managers. We're talking about powerful, deep-seated psychological and structural forces at play. It all starts right inside our own brains, with a little mental quirk called loss aversion. We are all just hardwired to hate losing something way more than we enjoy gaining the exact same thing. For a giant company, that's a huge deal. It means protecting the billions of dollars you already have feels way more important than chasing the potential billions you might get.
And that bias feeds right into another classic mental trap, the sunk cost fallacy. This is where all the money, time, and effort you've already poured into something starts to dictate your future decisions. The investments become chains, making it incredibly hard to walk away, even when you know you probably should.
You want the perfect example? Kodak. This is just wild. They literally invented the first digital camera way back in 1975. But what did they do? They buried it. Why? Because management looked at this new digital thing and saw it as a sure loss to their incredibly profitable film business. Any potential gain was just probable. That's loss aversion in a nutshell.
And to really get a sense of their sunk cost problem, just look at this number. By the 90s, just to remodel one of their main film production plants was going to cost them $5 billion. With a B. How on earth do you just walk away from that kind of investment? It feels pretty much impossible. So this way of thinking gets baked right into the company's DNA, and it creates a powerful status quo bias. All of Kodak's systems, like how they calculated return on investment, were perfected for the film business. So these processes basically acted like a corporate immune system. Anytime a weird, uncertain digital project came along, the antibodies would swarm and kill it, simply because it didn't fit the old successful model.
But it goes even deeper than just psychology. There's a systemic force at work here, almost like the physics of the corporate world, that locks a company onto its current path and makes turning the ship incredibly difficult.
The concept is called path dependency. Think of it like this. The first person to walk through a snowy field leaves a trail. The next person finds it easier to walk in those same footprints. Pretty soon, you've got a deep, well-worn path. And trying to forge a new one through all that deep snow, it gets harder and harder with every person that follows the old path. Right, so this lock-in doesn't just happen instantly. At first, that snowy field is wide open, you can go anywhere. But then, a few small wins and some positive feedback, you sell a little more film, and that one path starts to get deeper. It creates this self-reinforcing loop until finally, you're in a trench. You're locked in, and the cost to climb out and start over feels so massive that it's just not an option anymore. The company is stuck. Okay, so if the Goliaths are stuck, what about the Davids? We always think of startups as being super agile. They can turn on a dime, right? Well, yeah, but that agility is not free, not even close. Every single time they pivot, they have to pay a serious price.
And that price is what people call the pivot toll. It's the hidden and, let's be honest, often painful cost of changing your mind.
So, what exactly is this toll? Well, you're redirecting your already scarce money and people. You're risking total burnout and confusion on your team, which can crush morale. You're definitely confusing your first customers, and, maybe the most painful part, you risk throwing away all the valuable lessons you learned on the path you're now leaving behind. And yet, even with all those costs, check this out. Successful startups pivot, on average, 5 times before they find their winning business model.
They pay that toll over and over because they have to. For them, it's a matter of survival.
But what happens when you try to create a startup inside of a Goliath? Well, the numbers are grim. Rubicon Intelligence found that only about 4% of those ventures ever even make it to $1 million in sales. Why so low? Because they face the worst of both worlds. They have to pay the startup's pivot toll, and they're fighting against all that corporate inertia we've been talking about. It is a brutal uphill battle.
So, when you add it all up, the psychological biases, the financial anchors, the structural inertia, it can seem pretty hopeless. So, is there any way out? Can a giant corporation ever learn to be agile again? Can Goliath actually learn to dance?
The answer seems to be maybe, but it takes some really deliberate, often counterintuitive moves. Some companies create what they call a Speed 2, a totally separate innovation team that's shielded from the main company's rules and politics. It's like a speedboat that can zip around and explore, away from the slow-moving oil tanker. Others learn to embrace their entrepreneurs, the internal rebels and troublemakers who think like founders. And a lot of big companies are realizing it might be better to just partner with agile startups, letting them do the risky searching and then collaborating when they find something that works.
And this all brings us to the final huge question, especially for anyone listening who works inside an established company. Is this corporate inertia just an unbreakable law of business physics like gravity? Or can these Goliaths, weighed down by their own success, truly learn to be agile? The answer to that is going to decide who wins and who gets left behind.